Welcome to EE World. I'm your host, Martin Rowe. NI, formerly known as National Instruments, has always been a significant player in the test and measurement field. On February 1st, 2020, Eric Starkloff took over as CEO. Eric has been with the company since 1997, rising through the ranks starting as an applications engineer. Eric, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with EE World. NI has embarked on a campaign called Engineer Ambitiously. How does that differ from the company's previous slogan of "the software is the instrument"?
Yeah, that's a good. I'm glad you framed it that way, Martin. And thanks for having me on. And good to see you, by the way. But the software is the instrument. Really was a call to action that we had early in the company's history, recognizing that the world was becoming more software centric, and in particular, the test and measurement industry was becoming more software centric. And I would submit that happened. And I led that, but that really became the standard for our industry. The world has become completely software centric, and certainly software has been the dominant force in the test and measurement industry, particularly for the automation of systems. So now, as we think about the future, where to go from here, we wanted to have a call to action that called on engineers and recognize the impact that engineers have on the world and called on them to sort of increase that impact. So we believe Engineer Ambitiously is really about a call to engineers to recognize the impact that they have in the world, to think sort of creatively about how they can do things differently, certainly through software, but also through just the incredible amount of technology that's available to them, and set their sights on having a bigger and more positive impact on the world. And it's a celebration of the impact that engineers already have on the world around us.
Which industries and technologies are driving innovation in NI's customers?
Yeah, let me take it from the customer point of view primarily, because I think there's so much interesting technology happening in our customer base. Certainly, as you know very well, 5G is one of the technologies at the forefront of that. It really cuts across virtually all the applications and industries we serve. It is the communication fabric, not just for telecommunications, but for the future of our automobiles and all of our other technology as well. And that's one that we've really participated and will continue to participate in pretty significantly. By the way, I'll say that a trend across all these technologies is just the increasing complexity and what it means to the automation of testing. So 5G, very complex technology to test and characterize. The other ones are, some of the things we all think and read about, but certainly autonomy is another technology that cuts across multiple industries. We think of it as the automated safety systems in our cars, and certainly that's a big part of it. But autonomy has its place in drones and other kind of aerospace technologies as well. And that is certainly the marrying of sensors and perception with control. So NI has a real significant place to play there as well. And then to mention a third, really electrification is another one. We think about in the automotive industry, but it's a trend that's pervasive across the markets that we serve. The electric vehicle, of course, also electrification of aerospace technologies and the energy grid and grid-tied storage. Those are really important technologies, and lots of measurement challenges and lots of software-connected test challenges that are part of each one of those technologies.
Eric, you've been with NI for 23 years. In that time, how have you seen customers change, and how have you seen them stay the same?
Yeah, I think of it in both ways. So certainly, let me start with what stayed the same. We still are a company that at our heart and soul serves the engineering community. And so, the base of our customers, so many of our customers are the individual engineers building those measurement systems, building those automated test systems, using our software and our hardware technology to do so. And that's still, a core base of the company and a big part of who we are. What has changed over the years has been that increasingly, in addition to those engineering level customers, we're also serving higher level decision makers in companies. So this might be the person that's leading the engineering organization or the person that's leading an operations organization And we are partnering with those customers to solve higher level business and technology challenges. So it's not just about automating a single system, but it's more about how do I, for example, reduce the time it takes to get a product to market by streamlining the test process? Or how do I lower my operational costs of building a product by, again, streamlining, making a faster test system, et cetera? So solving those higher level challenges has been where a lot of the opportunity has been for NI, and it's expanded our customer base in terms of talking to the technologists, but also often the business decision maker as well.
You took over as CEO of NI on February 1st, 2020, just as COVID was beginning to loom upon us. How have you personally adapted? How has the company adapted? And how has COVID changed your plans for the company?
Yeah, my timing was remarkable. So you're right. It was February 1st. It was a Saturday that I took on the role formally. We actually, the evening before was when we started our crisis sort of task force in the company, because we had started to see the indications of things happening at that time, primarily in China. And then one of my first actions as CEO on that Saturday was to make the decision to not bring our employees back in China after the Chinese New Year. So some of the first moments of my tenure in this role were tied to COVID. And of course, that rapidly developed in the spring around the rest of the world, in Europe, and then in the US. And so it's certainly been a challenge. It's been a challenge for our customers. It varies quite a bit across industries. Of course, we have some customers that are building some of the technology, like what we're using to communicate now, that there's been increased demand for that technology. And we've all recognized the importance of this communication and connectivity technology through this pandemic, maybe more than ever before. Other industries have been affected pretty significantly. Demand for automotive is down. Obviously, the airlines and and sort of the air transportation industry has been severely affected by reduction in business travel and personal travel through COVID. So the customers have had varying impact. What I've been the most proud of, and actually in some ways, I never would have believed it going into this, is how well we've been able to continue to operate the company, build our technology, support our customers throughout these challenges. It's been super dynamic. The situation has evolved quite a bit as time has gone on, and we've all had to be really nimble. But our ability to use technology, support our customers virtually, enable them to use technology virtually and do remote labs and log into test systems and everything else has exceeded my expectations. And there's been a ton that we've learned from that we will certainly carry forward and enable our customers to be able to continue to refine the way they do their job and whatever we have in the future in terms of the new normal.
What have you learned?
Let's see, there's been a ton. So certainly we've learned like new ways of collaboration. As a global company, one of the things that's always been a challenge is how do you capture all the voices of, maybe it's different designers on a program, or maybe it's different salespeople, or maybe different customers. And how do you do that, right? And certainly there's a challenge with, not traveling and not seeing people face to face, and that creates some challenge. But the opportunity side of that is tools like this really completely eliminate or mitigate or level the playing field in terms of physical distance. So I'll have calls with my team or with an extended team, or we'll have a brainstorming session or a customer input session, and we can bring people in everywhere around the world. Now, of course, we did that some before the pandemic hit, but the necessity of the use of these technologies, the learning curve in terms of our familiarity, our comfort, the fact that they've become the default, that's really a change significantly. The same goes with our customers. We were already coming into this expanding the use of these kind of technologies for support of our customers, for our sales and support organizations and our service organizations. We've accelerated that. We've accelerated the online learning programs that we have and the platform that we have for that. We've accelerated the use of demonstration of our software technology remotely. We've accelerated some of the features in our own products to enable our customers to remotely manage distributed assets. And all of those have been sort of learning experiences, but really rapid iteration cycles, given the sort of forced necessity of the situation that we've all been in.
LabVIEW has long been NI's flagship product. What is the status of LabVIEW today?
Yeah, so LabVIEW remains a really important part of our portfolio, and it is still, in my mind, and a little biased, but without a doubt, the best tool there is in the world for automating test systems. What's evolved over time, and it's similar to the question you asked about how has our customer base evolved. For many of our customers, the core of what they do still is built around LabVIEW and our other development tools. But if I compare to where we were maybe 10, 15 years ago, that was, predominantly what we did, maybe all we did in a way. And what's happened over time is that that's continued to play a very important role, and we've added to it. So our software is not just development tools built around LabVIEW and CVI and other tools, but it's also the frameworks for doing things like hardware in the loop testing. It is the software that's used to remotely manage systems through our SystemLink software. We've acquired a technology through Optimal Plus that's about, product data analytics. So we're able to, with that suite of tools and with the hardware and the systems that we build as a company, we're able to solve those higher level business and technology challenges that I mentioned earlier about reducing time to market, increasing operational efficiency. LabVIEW is a really important part of that, but we've got a much more robust platform around it to enable a bigger impact to our customers.
What role do you see AI and machine learning play in test automation?
Yeah, I actually am a big believer. I think AI and machine learning is a really important technology, particularly for the future. And here's the way I think of it. If I think of our own history, it's really around being at the forefront of the automation of test systems, the automation of measurement systems. And when you think about AI and machine learning, it is fundamentally a set of new technologies for a higher level of automation. That's what those tools are used for. They're used for machines to be able to detect patterns and automatically control or automate systems through data and algorithms. And so when I think of our own industry, the tools of AI and machine learning, I believe are going to enable a new level of automation that will help us deal with the incredible rise in complexity. I started off talking about the customer trends in 5G and autonomy and everything else. Well, the degree of complexity of a modern 5G transceiver, for example, building an automated test system for that is rapidly getting to the point where it exceeds an individual person's capacity for kind of, how can I functionally test all of the blocks of this design? Well, tools like AI and machine learning can really help there. They can help us automate, for example, the analytics of data. It can help us automate the way test works in a sort of workflow. Ultimately, I think they will start to automate the creation of test systems through interrogating or the data that comes from design, through direction of the engineers themselves. But some of the lower level details of creating the test system will ultimately be more the output of an intelligent system using technologies of AI and ML. So these are, I think, really important technologies for the future of how we automate and get more and more capability and efficiency out of test.
NI played a significant role in the early research around 5G, particularly millimeter wave. Does the company intend to continue being a part of that research as we move into 6G or whatever it is that will replace 5G?
Yeah. And we're doing both. And I would say, our current position on 5G is around validation, characterization, and production. So quite a bit of what we're working on with our customers is around, validation cycles and characterization cycles in addition to production. But to your question about 6G, let me replay a little bit what we did in 5G. We started a 5G team in 2010. And back then, of course, the state of 5G was a set of ideas, a set of goals, some prototypes and early prototypes, some channel sounding measurements to evaluate what would become the millimeter wave sort of spectrum that we're now beginning to exploit. And those things over a process and time coalesced into a set of standards that we now are able to use. And so 6G is in a very, very early state of kind of where 5G was 10 years ago. And these things do tend to go in like 10-year cycles. And we're already working with some researchers and some of the early engineers that are doing some of the same types of things, prototyping some technology ideas that may make their way into a future standard. There is actually new sort of channel sounding. There's investigation of sort of terahertz spectrum. So there's some work that we're doing around understanding and characterizing through measurements of the real world what some of the propagation properties of the terahertz spectrum. So a little bit sort of reminiscent of where we were about 10 years ago with 5G, and no one knows what technologies will become the next generation of communications infrastructure, but certainly we do know that we're going to need to measure and prototype and go through the iterative engineering process to prove out the best ideas and then settle on them over the coming years. And I will be a part of that through prototyping, research, and through our measurement technology.
NI has always been involved heavily in engineering education, working with universities, supplying equipment. How has that changed given COVID-19? And how has NI's engineering practices reflected the company's commitment to engineering education?
Yeah, so I'll mention a few things. So one is our university relationships have developed over the years. One of the things, to the point we were just talking about, that's become a bigger part of it is the research side. So compared to years ago, we're doing more on the collaborative research. We have a long-term innovation program that interacts with leading engineering universities on key research topics in many of the areas that you and I have discussed over the last 30 minutes or so. We also have teaching, as you mentioned, and it's interesting, but we have product portfolios that are student-owned teaching devices that in this environment are even more critical. And we're actually seeing uptick in demand in those kind of products because of all of the remote learning that's happening. And with less access to centralized labs, there's a shift to student-owned devices for learning key concepts and measurement concepts and so forth. And then the hiring one, this is a little early, but I'll just say that we've always had a key element of hiring and in our relationships with university. That's something that we'll continue to do. That's an important pipeline. I actually came through that pipeline through our engineering leadership program in the beginning of my career with NI. And one of the things that I'm thinking a lot about and challenging us is really from a diversity and inclusion point of view. We're opening our aperture to what are the other ways to look at the pipeline of talent coming into our organization, to challenge the organizations that are, educating those students, and to look at other organizations that are educating students to really increase the diversity in engineering. That's something that I'm passionate about. I see it as a big opportunity, and it just comes from the belief fundamentally that when you think about the engineering process, it's about how do we get the most possible ideas. And those ideas come from a diversity of experiences. And the more people we can have involved in that field with the more diverse backgrounds, the better solutions we'll have to engineering problems. So we're thinking about that from a recruiting pipeline as well. And we'll be evolving that pipeline in that dimension as we go forward.
Eric, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with EE World. I wish you many years of great success at NI. For EE World, this is Martin Rowe signing off until next time. Thank you for watching.